is your warm-up for today. So I want you to try and fill out these 2 points with digits 0 through 9, so they cannot be a negative. You can't put like -9, -8, whatever. But when you go to subtract, they will end up a negative. They may end up a negative. I'll let you choose if you want to use repeat digits or not. But you need to come up with 2 ordered pairs with these digits that would equal this slope. So I'll give you like 5 to 7 minutes to try that. If you think you have 2 ordered pairs that work, raise your hand, I'm going to check them. And then we'll talk about all the ones that you guys thought about. Of all the classes, I don't think anyone used 0, but that would work. And then, so that one was Zeke's, and then this one was Bella's. 1 minus 8 over 6 minus 1. Yesterday they were, Isaiah, did you have one? There were a lot of similar ones that used a lot of 9s, 9s and 2s to get the 7, 8 and 3 to get the 5, stuff like that. Anyone else have one that they want to check to see does it work? So that was kind of taking what we did last class, finding the slope, but not just being able to find the slope, but be able to create it as well. So today, we are going to finish our slope notes and then talk some desmos stuff and then go into intercepts. Pause slide. Wait for this to open. Okay, in these notes, go to this page. Most of our linear equations are written in the slope-intercept form. Does anyone know what that format is? Omar?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b, yes. Where m we talked about last time is the slope with b. So this next part is more so writing, but we need to be able to convert from slope-intercept form, not really convert, be able to identify what the slope and y-intercept are when given the equation, but also when given slope and y-intercept, be able to write the equation back and forth. So for number 1, we are given the slope and y-intercept, and we would write it as y equals our slope, our m2, then the variable x. It says plus b, but it can be minus as well, and you would just put minus 1. How would we write number 2? Omar, I did see your hand. Okay. And then what about, I'm going to skip some, number 5, how would we write that one?
Y equals 1/4 x.
Yeah, so you can put it as just 1/4 x, or if you want to put the plus 0, you can. Either or, it doesn't matter. Okay. Are there any others in this section we want to see, do, go over, have questions about?
Number 6.
So if we were writing this, y y equals, what would be the next thing? Negative 5 halves. Keep going. What's the rest of this?
-3.
We're missing something. X. So don't forget your x. That is a big part of your equation. All right, we're going to skip 7 and 8. Go on to the next page. Sometimes your equations are written in standard form. So that's your ax plus by equals c. So this is going to go back to when we were solving literal equations. We were rearranging so that it equaled a specific variable. We kind of want to do the same thing here. We want to rearrange this so that it equals y equals mx plus b again. So for number 1, how could I get y by itself? What could I do here first? We could subtract 2x to both sides. Remember, when we do this, we're not combining these, we're just moving it to the other side. And then to get this back in slope-intercept form, you can either do this at the last step or you can do it when you move things. Switch these two so that it looks more like y equals mx plus b. But when you switch them, whatever sign, negative or positive, was in front has to stay the same. So 2 was negative, so it has to stay negative. 3 was positive, so it has to stay positive. Any questions on that before we do some more? Number 2, what would be that first step? Really, it's going to be the same for all of these. Get rid of the x term by either adding or subtracting. We have 5y. I'm going to go ahead and switch these now so I don't have to do them later. So minus 4x minus 30. And then to get rid of the 5. All right. Yes, but we're going to divide every single thing by 5. So here, your y-intercept can be a fraction, a decimal, a whole number, it doesn't matter, but your slope has to be a fraction no matter what. So if this can't be simplified, you just leave it as a fraction. The slope has to still be that ratio, that rise over run. So that slope has to be a fraction no matter what. Questions on that one? Alright, we're going to do a few more. Number 3 is our first step in that one. How exactly?
Minus x.
So again, I'm going to rearrange. So negative 3y equals negative x plus 12. And then I want to divide by negative 3. So all your signs are going to change. What would your new equation be? What do we think? If we're dividing by 3 here, what would this become? So not 3x because we're dividing. It would become positive though. Okay.
1x.
So there is a 1 here, but we're dividing by 3. So it'll be 1 over 3x. So you can write it like this, or you can write it as y equals x over 3. Either or. You just have to know that there's a 1 in front, so that slope would be 1/3, not 3. Okay, let's try one more, and then I'll have you guys try some. 2 more, and then I'll have you guys try some. Number 5, first step.
Minus 4x.
Subtract 4x to both sides. You can put the plus 0, you can leave it off, it's up to you. And then to get rid of the negative,
Divide negative y.
so not by negative y, but what's the number?
1.
1. Divide by negative 1. So you can either leave it as y equals 4x, or if you put plus 0, you would divide that by negative 1 and put plus 0 at the end. Either or. Okay. Number 7, what would be the first step in that one?
Plus 6x.
So that was going to be opposite. Add 6x instead of subtracting, but everything else is the same. So to get y by itself, divide everything by 4. Simplify where possible. What would that new equation be? What was that one? Keep it as an improper fraction. I didn't quite get that. Simplify it. Just keep it as an improper fraction. Do you have any questions on how to convert standard to slope-intercept form? I want you to try number 6. When you finish that, raise your hand, I'll come check it. If you finish that before we go over 6, you can try 4 and 8, and I'll give you a couple. So that should have been what we got for that one, y equals 3 over 2x plus 7. Did we have questions about that one? Alright, I'm going to show you some things in Desmos that I don't believe I showed you, but it's been a week, so I don't know. Okay. On your iPad, go into Desmos. So first, this is helpful for the 2 points. I don't remember if I talked about this or not. So I'm going to put in 2 random points. You choose whatever points you want. I hit label. If you also want to hit label, you can do that. So this is a good way to check yourself when you have 2 points and you have to find the slope. You can look at the graph. If it's easy to count from here, you can just do that. If you would like the graph to stand out a little bit easier, nicer, you can do this. So go into the wrench. Turn off the minor grid line, so unhook it. And then in the place where it says step, put 1 for both. Then you have all of the numbers like a normal grid line, like what we would see on a graph. Instead of, in Desmos, sometimes the numbers go away, or you don't know what number it is, or it counts by weird things. So that helps you do that. Anyone need me to do that again? So put in your order pairs, go into the wrench, turn off the minor grid lines, change the step to 1 for both x and y, and then you'll be able to count your slope from there. Something else I want to show you is the stuff we were just doing, the converting. So I'm going to take the first one we did, 2x plus y, and then we put that in. And then I'm also going to put in our answer. You may have not seen what just happened, but if I go in this and I change a couple things, you can see that the two lines are overlapping. This is another good way to check yourself. If you convert your standard form to slope-intercept form and your lines are not overlapping, something is wrong there. So maybe you missed a negative somewhere, maybe you divided incorrectly, something. But use that to double check yourself when you're at home, practicing on double math, practicing for quizzes and tests, stuff like that. Questions on how desmos works with slope? There'll be more things I show you with desmos and slope, but not today. A bunch of definitions that I want you to write down. You don't need to write this down word for word, but if you want it word for word, you can write that down. So as you are writing this down, I'm just going to talk through it. So write what you feel is necessary. So definition of intercepts. For the x-intercept, graphically, it's the point or points where the graph crosses, touches, or intersects the x-axis. Algebraically, the point or points at which f of x or y equals 0. So summary of that. X-intercept graphically where it crosses the x-axis. Algebraically where y equals 0. Y-intercept. Graphically, the point or points where the graph crosses, touches, intersects the y-axis. Algebraically, the point or points at which x equals 0. Summary. Graphically, where it crosses the y-axis. Algebraically, where x equals 0. When you write intercept, they should be written as an ordered pair. For this last part, really only need this part. X-intercepts are called roots, solutions, and zeros. The rest is just y. So roots are usually used with quadratic functions. Right now we're in linear functions, so later when we get to quadratics, we'll be using roots. Solutions, as we talked about when we were solving, because it makes the equation true. Zeros, because it makes the equation or f of x equal to 0. Your number 2 and your number 3 are different than mine, so don't look at mine, look at yours. We're going to do number 1 first. If it helps you, you may want to highlight or thicken the lines of the x and y axes so you don't get them confused with anything else. And then graphically, we're looking at where does this line, this diagonal line, cross the x-axis. And we can say these out loud. So at 2, so then we would write it as an ordered pair, 2, 0. Where does it cross the y-axis?
0, -3.
0, -3. I want you to look at your numbers 2 through 6 and see if there are any others we want to do, see, go over, have questions about. Were there any that we wanted to go over in 2 through 6? Yes, I know. 6. them. Give me one. Where does this cross the x-axis? 3, 0 is one of them. Where else?
0.
0, 0 is another one. Where else? -5, 0. So depending on the function, there could be many x and y intercepts. I'm sorry. Yes, there could be many x and y intercepts. There could just be one. The ones we'll see will most likely be linear and just have one and one. Right? Y-intercepts. Where is that? 0, 0. If it goes through the origin, they'll have the same x and y-intercept. You would write it for both. Okay. Any others we want to go through 2 through 5? 4. For number 4, where does this cross the x-axis?
0.
3, 0, and -3, 0. Where does it cross the y-axis? 0, -3. Notice that these have the same numbers. It's important on where you put the 0 in these order pairs. Because if you put it in the wrong place, you have put the wrong intercept. Let's go on to the next page. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do this algebraically. So first, f of x is the same thing as y. F of x is more for functions, y is more for equations, but they're interchangeable. So if you wanted to rewrite this as y equals 4x minus 8, you could. You don't have to, but you can. If we are solving for an x-intercept, our y value has to be 0. So I'm going to take y, replace it with 0. And then I'm just solving for x. How would I do that?
Plus 8.
And divide by 4. So we get an answer, but we still want to write that as an ordered pair. How would we write that ordered pair? 2, 0. So our y value was 0. Questions on how we solve that algebraically before we go on to the y-intercept? So same process for the y-intercept, similar process I should say. We have our equation. In order to find our y-intercept, our x value needs to be 0, so we put 0 in. What would our y-intercept be? -8. And that ordered pair would be 0, -8. So with your y-intercept, if it's in this format, you can really just look right here. It's in slope-intercept form. It's just f of x instead of y. So you don't have to do the work if you notice that it's in this format, because it gives you your y-intercept. Okay. Questions on that one before we do another? Or something. Alright, we're going to skip down to number 4. Let's do y-intercept first. What would that be? -6. How would I write that as an ordered pair? 0, -6. For the x-intercept, our y value has to be 0. I'm just going to go ahead and write that as 0 equals 2/3 x minus 6. How would I start solving this? Add 6. And then how could I get rid of the 2/3? Yes, multiply it by the reciprocal. At this point, we should not be dividing anymore. We should be multiplying by the reciprocal. So take it, flip it, multiply on both sides. So the x equals 9. And we would write that as 9, 0. Okay. Notice that I'm labeling the order of pairs as x or y, just in case you put your work over here, but you put your answers over here. You still need to label which one is which, so that I know that you know which one is which. Right. Are there any others in 2 through 6 that we want to see you go over and have questions about? So then we're going to move on to how do we find intercepts in a calculator. And in Desmos. So we're going to do calculator first because it has more steps, and then I'll show you in Desmos, and then you'll have time to practice. So, in your calculator, go ahead and reset it because everyone's been on these. Second plus 7, 1, 2. Another battery in there, I will give you one. Was there one in there? No. Alright. So we are going to put number 1 in. So we're going to go into y equals at the top. It already has a y, so you don't need that part. You don't need f of x, any of that. We need x squared, so your variable first, then square, then minus 16. And these instructions are on the side if you get lost. Then graph it. It should look something like this. Bless you. Now, I can see that this goes through -4 and 4, but if it were on a decimal, or maybe I wasn't sure, is it actually 4 and -4? I want to make sure, double check any of that. This is where this would come into play. So, in order to find x and y intercepts, you're going to go into calculate, so second trace. Remember that 0 is another word for x-intercepts, so we'll find x-intercepts first, because it takes more work. So I just hit 2. So second trace, go into 0. And then it asks you for a left bound. So 1. You can only find one of these at a time. So let's say I'm looking for this one. I need some number to the left of this. So someone give me a number left of this. So I'm going to type in -5 and hit enter. Yours may just give you this little cursor at the top. Mine gives me a line. That's saying it will not look past that line. That's my stopping point. Now I ask for a right bound. So I need another number in between here that doesn't go past this one. So some number to the right of this, but that doesn't go past this. Someone give me a number in between here. Sure. I'm going to type in -1 and hit enter. Now I have 2 lines. It's going to tell me it's looking in between those 2 places for my x-intercept. Then it says guess. You don't want to guess. You want the calculator to do the work, so hit enter. And it will tell you what that x-intercept is. So then we would just write that down, -460. Just in case you missed that, we're going to do it again for the other one. So go back into second trace. Go back into 0. But now we need a number to the left of this one that's in between here. And give me a number for that. Sure. -2. Type in that, hit enter. Then I need some number to the right of this. Someone give me a number for that. Sure. Type in 5, hit enter. Now it has barriers, that's where it's looking at. And I'm going to hit enter again, so it can tell me my x-intercept is at 4, 0. Okay, so that's how you would find your x-intercept on a calculator. This is how we find the y-intercept. Go back into second trace. But this time we're going to go into value, number 1. And it asks for an x value. We're looking for a y-intercept. What is our x value? 0. So we're going to put 0 in and hit enter. And it will tell you what the y value is, the y-intercept is. So you would write that down, 0, -16. So in your graph you can't see it, but if I were to go down, it would eventually cross the y-axis somewhere down here. Questions on how to find the x and y intercepts in the calculator? Now I'm going to show you how to do it in Desmos. So someone pick one of the questions 2 through 10. Alright. Sure. So in Desmos, we're going to type in number 7. I'm going to get rid of my line of grid lines and my steps. Alright, number 7. So x to the power of 3, I'm going to use the a to the d, but then I have to come out of it minus 5x squared plus 2x plus 8. So if you zoom out, you can see what it's doing. Once you get everything in there, if you click on it, it's going to highlight a bunch of different points. I'm going to change the color of this actually so we can see it a little bit better. So it's going to highlight a bunch of different points. It depends. Each graph is different. For this one, you only need to be looking at 4 of these points. The x-intercepts and the y-intercept. So be careful here, because there are 2 points. This one is just the highest point. You don't need that one. So you just need your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts. But on Desmos, it's very easy to find those. And you would just write those down. I'm going to start writing that down. Do we have any questions on how we find intercepts in Desmos? So then for the rest of class, I want you to work on numbers 2 through 10, the rest of those, finding the intercepts using either Desmos or the calculator. You can work together, you can move around, Once you have finished all 10, you can put your iPad and calculator away. But finish all 10 first.